take me home.
You are all I ever need. Jesus, you have set me free. Good afternoon and welcome to Discerning Truths with Bill Donahue. Where on Fridays we tend to go a little off the rails, discuss subjects that you probably will never hear discussed in church, and today is no different. But before we get into today's study, I do want to take care of some business as usual and make sure you all know how to contact me, and if you need anything, have any questions. Mail, you want to use the Donahue address for anything you're doing right now. Any of you that still have my Temecula address, you want to delete that. Use this address in Donahue. And then any emails with questions, concerns, or that should go to bill@discerningtruths.com. And emails for the Prophet Club, go to prophetclubclowns@gmail.com. And then I put a link to my replays on Cloud Hub because some people are fairly new to joining me. And if you want to see what I've been teaching for over a year and a half or so, it's up on Cloud Hub, and you can follow that link, or you can go to Cloud Hub, go into channels, search for channel 217. It's the easiest way to find me, and then go down there. When I'm done with today's show, as in any other show, I will create a PDF of anything that I put up on the screen and post it on the Discerning Truths group on Telegram. And that's for you to go look it up, see if what I said was true, and decide for yourself. Use your own brain. And we don't ask anybody to check their brain at the door when you come to this study. On Monday and Wednesday, I typically teach through a book in the Bible. Right now we're in Revelation. We're coming near the end of Revelation. And then on Fridays, I might teach anything from aliens to supposed lost books of the Bible. Just about anything that connects to the Bible, but even these are going to seem like tangential connections until I tie the loop up for you. And then on Tuesday, assuming Neo and I are both available, I generally join her show. I use Pacific times for all my start times just because Honolulu time's a little confusing for people. My shows are at noon Pacific time, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And then Neo starts around 8:15-ish on Pacific time. And I normally join her about half an hour into her show. I see her card still says that she starts at 10 Central. It's more like 10:15, you know. And then if you weren't there to watch Miguel California and Michael Beatty go through the book of Luke, amazing study. He's going to start Acts, which is, I call Luke Acts, Luke 2. It's written to the same person and continues the same subject matter, post-resurrection, and it's about the church. Wonderful way to start your day. We were up at 3:30 this morning in Kauai listening, but Loff and I will catch it on replay when I get up. Little worship, Proverbs, and then a short Bible study. Great way to start your day. And then on Sunday, his lovely wife Linda joins him, and they're going through the Psalms right now, and just a beautiful thing to be able to participate in. So I titled today's study is Tartar or Tartaria, or the Great Tartaria, a great and lost empire. And you go, what the heck is Tartaria and Tartaria? And I'm going to deal with this. Last week I dealt with what I call the Khazarian myth. It comes out of the same general area, the steppes of Russia, Eurasian steppes there. And I showed that it was myth and based in racism. This is not the same. This is actually has some credibility. There's some truth and some error, and I want to help you divide between those two. And there's a reason I'm going through these, and I'll get to that reason at the end of today's show. So I enjoy programs that delve into the unorthodox or fringe theories, like lost history, or the proof is out there, the unexplained, or look into historical sites that were previously discovered, undiscovered, like the Secrets of Saqqara's Tomb. I mean, I watched that program, and I loved it. I'll watch anything that deals with the subject of archaeoastronomy. The ancients seem to have a lot more understanding of the movements of the heavens than we want to give them credit for. And to much to my wife's chagrin, I love watching like the Curse of Oak Island. I don't ever expect them to find treasure, but I would like to know why somebody went to that much trouble digging on the island, and what would, if we can discover what the original purpose was, that would be fascinating to me. So one of the streamers that I watch when I have a chance is called 1 Foot in 5D. It's Alara Sirius. And Alara likes to jump into those, down those rabbit holes just like I do. And I find her entertaining. She does not present the stuff out as fact. She clearly identifies what she's doing as looking at information and trying to figure out what's true and what's error. We don't always agree, but I don't see any harm with doing that. And so I really enjoy her programs, and it's fun for me. And it may not be fun for you, but I'm just setting the background that this is where I first heard this theory, was on her program. And then it made me search it out. Now, I completely agree that there's many things from history that seem to defy the standard narratives, and of which we don't know enough about. Here are just a few examples, okay? The Mayan culture was supposedly limited to Central America and Mexico, but there are Mayan ruins that go as far as Georgia, far away from there as Georgia in the United States. Many of the megalithic structures around the world, Stonehenge, the Great Pyramid, and there's a number of megalithic structures that are around the world, and they seem to align. And it's come up with theories of ley lines around the world, and people build all kinds of theories out of it. But there's got to be, it just can't be accidental that these align, and we have no idea why. And reproducing some of the ancient structures, like the Great Pyramid of Giza, would tax the ability of modern engineers and our technologies to reproduce what they did in ancient time, which kind of throws out the theory that these are just people that just recently exited their caveman dwelling experience. Now, I know as Christians we don't buy into that evolutionary theory, but it doesn't fit that theory, and it's not explained well in the Bible. And so you have these gaps in history. And then, like I said, archaeoastronomy, the idea that people can build a structure to where in the solar or the spring or winter equinox, the sun lines up directly with a shaft that lights all the way down a tunnel. I mean, that's an engineering marvel, but it's also shows you that the people that built it knew a lot about the movement of the heavens, and that seems odd if they are primitive people. Okay. Now, I will watch ancient alien shows. I don't believe in the ancient alien theory, and I did a show kind of taking on that issue. But this stuff interests me because I'm always looking for answers. So I just lay this out to tell you, I have no bias for or against the existence of an empire that the world has little remembrance of. Okay? However, I'm always suspect of conspiracy theories that attach themselves to historical facts. My question is, does the evidence support the claims about the Empire of Tartaria? If yes, how does this connect at all to the Khazarian myth that I dealt with last week, since Tartaria and Khazar, or Khazaria, are located in the same area? Now, Tartaria is supposedly larger than Khazaria ever was, but they're in the same area. A lot of this history, this supposedly lost history, originates in the steppes, the Eurasian steppes, okay? Above Iran and Iraq, below Russia, in all the countries that end in stan now, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, all the stans up there. And that area didn't leave a lot of written history And so it's fodder for a lot of this stuff. So here's the theories that are going around online right now. Many old maps label massive swaths of inner Eurasia as Tartaria or Tartary or, Great Tartary. And supposedly the area listed as Great Tartaria on older maps was not just a name given to a vast area the West knew very little about, but rather it was a great civilization, even a global empire that extended to the United States, by the way, in the theory. Much of this empire was destroyed by mud floods, but the Tartarian architecture still can be found in buildings around the world, including the United States. Okay? Supposedly the reason that old buildings have windows below grade is because the modern buildings are built on top of structures buried in the mud floods. Okay? And there's a global conspiracy to suppress the history of the Tartarian Empire, to cover up the existence of this mud flood, and to claim the impressive accomplishments of their advanced culture as our own. This is where, red flags start going up for me, okay? You start claiming a global conspiracy. I'm looking for, where's the beef? Where's your evidence, okay? They claim Napoleon's 1812 invasion of Russia was really a war against Tartaria, and that after the mud flood and the world wars of the 20th century were all actually just excuses to destroy the remaining traces of Tartaria. And then Tartarian supposedly had advanced technology, including wireless energy, but the powers to be, this undefined they, conspired to hide this energy from the dependent masses, right? And Tartarians were European-looking rather than Turkic or Mongol-looking people. Some even had red hair. Right? These are all the claims. Some of these claims have substance, okay? Others not so much. Now, the attached link is to a webpage critical of the theories, but it provides a decent explanation of what they are and links to other articles if you want to do your own search, right? Dive down the rabbit hole yourself. But anytime you venture outside of accepted history, you are bound to encounter a few nuts, okay? Some of those nuts are otherwise extremely smart people. Anatoly Fomenko is a great example. He is an accomplished mathematician, but he has rewritten almost all of human history based on his theory of parallelism combined with a Russian-centric view of history. Like we have a lot of times we're accused of having an American-centric view of history, and he has a very Russian-centric, that Russia, a lot of things that other people are credited with really were Russia, okay? Now, his theory is so strange that I don't know of a single historian that takes it seriously. But if you want to jump in a giant rabbit hole, of which the Greater Tartaria is a smaller rabbit hole within the bigger rabbit hole, then I give you a link to Fomenko's book. On another site, the author seeks to debunk the Tartarian theories by promoting the idea that this is just a rehash of the Khazarian myth I dealt with last week, and we're going to see, is that true? Is this the Khazarian myth repackaged? His preferred theory is that it's the Phoenicians who really are behind both the Tartars and the Khazars, and they run the world, okay? So you can follow that rabbit hole. There's a ton of them out here. But, sorry, do I have two? So I think I have two of the same slide. I just double checking. Yeah. Let me fix something. Give me just a minute. Sorry. Trying to fix this on the fly, and it's just taking me a second. Okay. There we are. That's the slide I was missing. So what evidence is there of this theories? The attached map that I put on the front is just one of many maps that identify the area between the Black Sea and China along the Eurasian steppes, and even Russia as Tartaria, Tartaria, the Great Tartaria, or Grande Tartaria, which is the map that I put up there. The Encyclopedia Britannica in 1771 says Tartary was a vast country in northern parts of Asia bounded by Siberia and northwest, and that is called Great Tartary. While when you look at Wikipedia, the proponents claim that Wikipedia is trying to hide the fact that Tartaria was a country by writing Tartari, Latin for Tartaria, or Great Tartary, Latin Tartaria Magnum, was the name used for in the Middle Ages until the 20th century to designate the great tract of northern and central Asia stretching from the Caspian Sea and the Ural Mountains to the Pacific Ocean, settled mostly by the Turco-Mongol peoples after the Mongol invasion and subsequent Turkic migrations. Okay, so Wikipedia and some other sources are going to say this is just a name given to that area, but they're looking at the Encyclopedia Britannica says it's a country, not an area. Herman Moll's System of Geography, also in 1701, also says the country of Tartary, called Great Tartary, to distinguish it from the lesser in Europe, has had its boundaries in the west, and he continues on. But again, what Herman Moll is saying here is that it's a country, and that's the name of a country. If it is, it's the largest country ever in existence. Okay. You can find this 1957 CIA report on the national cultural development under communism. It's online, and then they again refer to this Tartary, right? And the issue with the Communist Party is to proceed to a scientific revolution on the history of Tartaria, and this is their smoking gun, supposedly, that there's somebody trying to hide information on Tartary. They also, because they're claiming these mud floods destroyed the nation, volcanic mud floods are real events. Therefore, mud floods can explain comments like the one listed earlier about descend into the tomb where was buried alive the city of Herculaneum. You'll find there, it is true, a giant skeleton, not a giant skeleton of a man, but a huge city. But what is you have within the historical associations wherewith is to galvanize that. So what they're saying is this is a documented piece of history where an entire city was destroyed by a mud flood and covered and encased in a tomb, so to speak. So they're pointing that as evidence that that's what happened at Tartaria. They also look at a tremendous disparity between what the leaders like Genghis Khan and Batu Khan and Timur Eko Tamerlane look like to the contemporary artists versus the appearances attributed to them today. And what I'm going to show you is some pictures make these people look very European or very Turkish, and other depictions of them, they are very Asian looking. And they're suggesting that the Asian depictions are attempts to deceive you. Okay, and I'm going to offer you we'll look at it. And then Sir George Cornwall Lewis, in his book An Inquiry into the Credibility of the Early Roman History, right? And I highlighted in yellow for you here, Such remains of ancient cities are at no unfrequent occurrence in the deserts of Mongolia, but everything connected with their original history is buried in darkness. So in his book, he acknowledges that there are cities buried all over Mongolia that have no real explanation for where they came from. And then this is where I got the quote about the buried alive in the city of Herculaneum, and that they are the old abandoned cities of Tartary. Okay, now was Tartary a country? It was Tartary an area with multiple ethnic groups, but basically they're pointing to these resources to show you, to defend their position, that Tartary was a great empire. Now, proponents of this theory see evidence for Tartary in architecture around the world, especially great domes or very ornate buildings. This is not just a style of architecture. They're claiming it is a distinctively Tartarian style of architecture. And when you look at their websites, this is going to be a big argument from them. And while it's commonly believed that the word Tartary originated in the wake of a widespread devastation spread among the Mongol Empire, right? Adding of the extra R to Tatar, and you see there's no R, it's T-A-T-A-R instead of T-A-R-T-A-R, that the extra R was done by Westerners is to bring up like Tartarus, the Greek word for hell, right? And so or the bottomless pit, Tartarus. So what you're looking at is that this is Westerners describing it as just the great emptiness, the vast emptiness. In the change in the spelling was to do that. And the name Tartar first appears among nomadic tribes living in northeastern Mongolia in the area around Lake Baikal in the 5th century CE. Unlike the Mongols, these people spoke a Turkic language, and they may have been related to the Kuman or Chipkak peoples. That's Encyclopedia Britannica that identifies these people who lived in Mongolia and the steppes of Russia as not being Mongolian, not being Chinese in their ancestry, right? Not being Asian. That these are Turkic nations, like the other Turkic tribes that are across that area. And then the Collins Dictionary says the name Tartar refers to a member of people who under Genghis Khan established a vast, powerful state in Central Asia in the 13th century until it was conquered by Russia in 1552. Okay, Genghis Khan, if you've seen pictures of him, we're taught that he is Mongolian, very Asian-looking person, and they're arguing, no, these are Turkic people, they're not Asians, and that somebody is intentionally misleading you, right? Now, many old maps do label the area in question with some form of the word Tartary, right? On many of these maps, Tartary encompasses the vast regions of Siberia, Russia, Mongolia, Manchuria, China, Turkestan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, I told you all the stands, Kazakhstan, and the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region of China, and sometimes Tibet in China, is all labeled on some of these maps as Tartary. This is evidence from the proponents of this hypothesis that Tartary was a great global empire of just an absolutely dwarfed Grecian Empire, the Babylonian, Egyptians, Roman. This is just a huge empire that everything we know about it has been suppressed, right? So those are undisputed facts. The next set of undisputed facts is that various artists have portrayed numerous historical figures very differently. The proponents of this hypothesis focus on characters like Genghis Khan and Tamerlane, but artistic renderings of Jesus range from very European looking to olive skin or even an almost Negroid complexion. So I'm going to show you pictures, artistic renderings of Jesus, to show you that doesn't, that's not necessarily a good argument. The Eurasian steppes, sometimes called the Russian steppes, right? The Eurasian steppes have been home to many diverse cultures. This is still true today. Some of those people resemble white Europeans, while others look more Middle Eastern or even Asian. There was a substantial Semite population in this area for as long as there have been records. And Semite, I mean Israeli, right? Israel, tribes of Israel that settled up in that area. There are still some there today called, I went over the mountain Jews and stuff. These are not necessarily Jewish, but Israelites that lived in the area. They were definitely Semitic tribes in this area as part of it. And when we looked at Khazaria last week, there's at least 28 distinct cultures and ethnicities up here, right? At least some of these people living along the steppes had ruddy complexions and red hair. Now, ruddy means like reddish, okay? So you're talking about somebody that has light skin, light eyes, and light hair, possibly red hair, is ruddy. David's described as ruddy. Solomon's ruddy. Esau was not only ruddy but had red hair. You have some Semitic people that are ruddy in their complexion. But there are definitely people up here, whether they're Semites or not, who had that complexion. And it's not limited to Ireland and Scotland, okay? Now, some older books called Tartaria a country rather than an area. And volcanic mudfloods are a known phenomenon in nature. All that's undisputed. There's no issue with any of those things. There is also still a Tartarstan. It's a small republic in Russia, and its people that live in Tartarstan have a distinct culture and language. Not add language, and language. I'll fix that later. Okay? So all of this is completely without dispute, right? And I told you I'd look at the pictures, these artistic depictions. You can see Genghis Khan on the left looking very Asian, and then the picture of Genghis Khan on the right, he looks very Turkish, right? And then Tamerlane, okay, and he's Timur Gurkstani. He's a Turkic Mongol conqueror from the 14th century, and he was born in what is now known as Uzbekistan, okay? But when you look at his picture, on the left, that's a very Asian looking person, and on the right, very European looking person, in these artistic renderings of them. And their suggestion is that is an intention to deceive you about the skin color of the people that are up here. So I'm going to look at that question first. Here's our artistic renderings of Jesus, okay? I would say to you, I mean, the bottom in the white and the red robe, he's got blue eyes and blonde hair. That's a very Aryan looking Jesus. The top left is a more typical picture of Jesus you might see. The top middle is the oldest painting of Jesus known to man. The right is bottom right is another rendering where Jesus looks. It says, the Bible says there's nothing about his appearance that would make us desire him. That definitely would qualify, right? And then in the bottom below my yellow text, that's a very Negroid looking Jesus. And then the very right on the bottom is off a Jewish site, and that's a very contemporaneous looking Jew as Jesus, right? So all these paintings are artistic depictions of Jesus. We have no idea what his complexion of Jesus was. He has two of his ancestors, David and Solomon, had complexions described as ruddy or red. Esau is another son of Jacob, recorded as having red hair. But Jesus could have also had olive skin. We just don't know. The photos don't show that there's a conspiracy to alter the features or complexion of Jesus any more than the artistic variations of Genghis Khan and Tamerlane support the other conspiracy. And that's where I have problems with this, is you taking something that's common in history and trying to turn it into a conspiracy. They also claim that subterranean windows are proof that the buildings were built. This demonstrates a lack of understanding of construction. Before the invention of electric light, it was common to add windows below grade to add natural light into basements areas. This technique is still used today, even though we have electric light, when people want to bring in natural light into a space. It is not evidence at all that the building was buried and that something else is built on top of it. We do have examples of other cities built on top of buried cities. Seattle's one of them. There's a whole underground city in Seattle where they just built a new city right on top of the old city. It's not without precedence, but the existence of underground windows or windows below grade is not evidence for this. This is just, like I said, it's people demonstrating a lack of understanding of building standards and building techniques. Now, mud floods do occur, and they can cover entire buildings, I would say even a city, right? In 2022, Pakistan had catastrophic mud floods, but nothing even remotely on the scale of the mud floods that would have been required to destroy Tartaria, which proponents claim still existed in the 1900s, right? According to their theory, Tartaria still existed until the Tsar of Russia, okay, came into power. So you're talking about, 1800s, 1900s, that they were still there and fighting, and we're talking about a flood on a double A flood, apparently, on a similar scale to that of Noah's flood, okay? But there being no written record of this flood anywhere. Now contrast that to the story of the global flood recorded in the Bible. It's found in numerous cultures around the world. The details of the flood story differ from culture to culture, but the basic idea of a global catastrophic flood is common in them. Whether you're in Mesopotamian cultures, Babylonian epic, that we're looking at, Chinese records, you're looking at Native American cultures, speak of this flood. So there's a common memory of this flood, but this mud flood, nobody has a recollection of. It's not written anywhere, it's not recalled, right? So other than the very Russian-centric view of history invented by Anatoly Fomenko, it's hard to determine who the they are in this hypothesis, who would benefit from hiding this information about the supposed Tartaria. What is their motivation? See, when somebody tells me there's a they, my first instinct is to say, who's the they? And that's because I was raised that way. If I told my mother, well, they did it, or they said, or they whatever, she'd first tell me, who's the they? She wasn't going to take a complaint against some unknown, undescribed they. You had to define them. Now, I've seen people who claim that there's a they who's a nefarious cabal of drug-blinking, blood-drinking Satanists who control the whole world. Other hypotheses, such as the Khazarian myth, claim that the they are bloodthirsty Khazars impersonating Jews, and they are identified as controlling the world. But in this hypothesis, identifying the they who are hiding this information is hard to determine. It's like nailing Jello to the wall. And when I can't do that with a hypothesis, it's again raises red flags for me that somebody is telling you something they don't have facts to back up, right? Now let's look at the architecture. I picked up pictures, and these are all off of sites discussing the Khazarian architecture theory. And it basically, any building that has a dome is claimed, it doesn't matter if it's in Hong Kong, like the bottom right, or in Europe or the United States, if it has a dome structure that's supposedly Khazarian in design, and that they have all these ornate decorative things on the building, and their evidence for this is because these buildings are all over Tartaria. No, there are no buildings all over Tartaria that match this. This speculation of this architecture being Tartarian origin rather than a style of architecture used around the world seems to be made up out of whole cloth. I don't see any evidence for this, but it is presented as one of their strongest arguments that this culture existed, right? Now, the claim that the Tartarians had advanced technology, including free wireless energy, but the powers that be, this undescribed they, conspired to hide this energy from us dependent masses, seems to be a claim also made up out of whole cloth. Not even the proponents offer any evidence for supporting this part of their hypothesis. Proponents also make a giant point out of the fact that Napoleon attacked Moscow instead of St. Petersburg, which was the then capital of Russia. It was previously Moscow was the capital, then for a time St. Petersburg was, and then Moscow is again. But during the time Napoleon attacked, St. Petersburg was the capital. And they claim that this was Napoleon actually attacking the Tartarians instead of Russia. And this demonstrates a lack of understanding of battle strategy or Russian weather. The winter temperature in St. Petersburg and Moscow are similar. St. Petersburg is slightly colder, but I mean, it's a minuscule amount. But the high winds in St. Petersburg put an unprotected attacking army at a severe disadvantage. One comment on the winds said, one doesn't want to be hit by 10 millibars per second wind in minus 12 degrees, it'll rip your face off. So imagine you're not in a building, you're out there on a battlefield and you're going to attack St. Petersburg, and you not only have to deal with the cold, but this ripping wind. It would have been smarter strategically for Napoleon to take Moscow and cut off the coastal city of St. Petersburg from access to aid from other Russian cities. You basically divide and conquer, and then during the summer, in the spring and summer months, go over and take a week in St. Petersburg. But before Napoleon could do this, he had an outbreak of typhus, and it played a bigger role in the defeat of Napoleon's army than any Russian troops. It was a very bloody battle up there for Moscow. The details of it are super gruesome, including stacking bodies up as barricades. I mean, it is a gruesome battle, but part of the problem was typhus took out much of Napoleon's army and caused him to retreat back into France. Okay. Now, much like the Khazarian myth, what we find with the hypothesis of the Great Tartarian Empire is that there is a skin of the truth that some people have opted to stuff full of unsupported claims. This hypothesis doesn't have the same racist undertones as the Khazarian myth, but it's just one more rumor that is spread on the internet, right? And in some books. Like I said at the beginning of the stream, I enjoy chasing down these rabbit holes and trying to fill in some of the many gaps in history. And I first heard this hypothesis by listening to a streamer who does the same things. There's no harm in that. It's no harm for somebody like Alara to go chase down these rabbit holes. There's a big difference between that and telling you these are true. Okay? When you start presenting speculation as truth, there's a problem. Because I care about truth. And I want my beliefs, not what my beliefs. I want my beliefs to be rational and supported by evidence. That is where the need for discerning truths, and why I named the program that, manifest in my life. I hope more of you are applying critical thinking process when listening to claims like this, or even from Bible teachers, that you're basically asking questions. Why? What? How are you getting to this conclusion? We need to be able to separate truth from fiction. Often claims and information come as a mixed bag of truth and untruths. And this is the biggest problem. There'll be enough true facts in here, or possibly true facts, right? Possibly true claims, not facts, that when they add in their complete speculation, it's hard to pull out, okay? Now, I would prefer it if everyone cared about preserving their own credibility, but that's not the case. Many people will believe and repeat almost anything they hear. But as Christians, I think we have an obligation to test all things and hold fast to that which is true in 1 Thessalonians 5:21-23, because we are sharing the gospel. which is a claim that is almost too incredible to be true if we want to be believed when we speak of Jesus. Then we can't squander our credibility on myths and fabrications, right? Now, a place like the Eurasian steppes that was populated by so many different ethnic groups, but left little or no written record of their existence, is fertile ground for people to invent history. You got a blank page to start with, basically. We have the Khazar myth that sought to undermine Jewish claim to the land of Israel by insisting that these people aren't really Jews, that the people that migrated back to Israel aren't really Jews. These are bloodthirsty Khazarians who converted to Judaism. They're fake Jews, according to this theory, right? This rabbit hole about the Great Tartaria seems to want us to believe that some undefined group of people are hiding the secret of the global Tartarian Empire. They're less clear on who that group is and why they're doing it, but you have to believe it. You have this boogeyman that it creates, this evil thing. There's another claim that the evil people that moved into the steppes and now control the world are none other than the Phoenicians. Okay, that was a new one on me. But there's another claim that after Assyria transplanted Israel to the northwestern border as a buffer zone, which is true, that happened, that's in the Bible, with the fall of Assyria, these Israelites migrated northwest over the Caucasus Mountains into the steppes. That may be true. There's some evidence for that. And continued to migrate as people who became known as the Celts. That's doubtful but possible. British Israelism holds that it's not the Celts, but they're Anglo-Saxons. Okay, at this point, you got two competing theories. The greatest concentration of these Celts settled in Britain, Ireland, and Scotland. That's true of the Celts, right? Along with some in Portugal and Western Europe. This idea claims that Britain and the USA are now Ephraim and Manasseh, and we, not Israel, are God's people, and the rightful heirs to God's promises to Israel. That's all false. Okay, so you can see the biggest difficulty with this hypothesis is they start with some actual history and have just enough evidence mixed in with their distortions to make the claims look credible if examined without close scrutiny. And that's my issue here. And that last point is why I decided to hit some of these more odd areas, is because you're going to run across these stories about the Khazars or about Tartaria or British Israelism, either version, either where it's the Celts or whether it's the Anglo-Saxons. If you're from Britain, they're the Anglo-Saxons. If you're Irish and from the British Israelite theory, the original one, the Irish were the Canaanites. Okay, that we're Canaanites and we're the pricks that stuck in the eye of Israel. From the more USA-friendly version of British Israelism, Ephraim and Manasseh are the two Israelite tribes, and it's the Celts who migrated out of the steppes that become the true Israelites. All of this stuff is out there, and there's enough cloudiness on the real history of what went on the steppes, the Eurasian steppes, to let you fill in almost anything. And there's some truth put in here. I showed you all the undisputed facts. There's a lot of stuff here that nobody disputes. Why did they label that area Tartaria, right? Was it a country, or is that just a name they gave to that general area because the Tartars were people that they knew from that area, originally Tatars, and Tatars, and that some Westerners added another R, slamming them, basically calling that area hell, right? And is that what was done by map people, or was there really a great country that has no record left of it? Okay, you're going to encounter these, and if you want your credibility to remain, so that when you share the gospel, you show that you're a thinking person and you don't just believe everything you're told, and you show that what you're doing in this as you read and examine stuff, think about it, then I think we need to learn what these theories are, see examples of them being examined with some serious scrutiny, and whether they stand up, and then move back. And that maintains our credibility for the gospel. But if you waste your credibility spreading nonsense because some person on the internet told you, or you read it in some book, and without doing any investigation, then you're wasting an opportunity for God. So with that, I'm going to put a song on. I'm going to try to read the chat, and then I'll be back here. Sorry, my screen went away. I was trying to shift back. Yeah, like I said, there's some truth here. There's some error. You just want to be careful what we share and what we're doing it, right? And I didn't see any real questions, right? But it's a, you make a good point, Roberta. That means every Greek Orthodox church in the world is Tartarian. It's kind of crazy. It is a style of architecture that's used around the world, and it doesn't show that they're Tartarian, but part of the theory. In fact, one of the pictures they show at one of the world's fairs, they created a fake city basically out of plaster and hemp, and its beautiful buildings are all fake. And they present that picture as evidence of Tartarian architecture, and it was a fake. It's like a movie set front, that was on there. So with that, I hope you don't mind me going off way out in the weeds on some of these Fridays, but there's so much nonsense out here on the internet that I thought, if we keep not being careful as Christians, how are we going to protect ourselves and our credibility when we tell people the most incredible story of the world, that God became man and died in your place so that you could be imputed with his righteousness and go to heaven? That story is beyond belief, except for it's true. And the only way that I have hope so you believe in me is if I show myself to be credible in other aspects. And also, the Holy Spirit needs to enlighten you. But I'm just saying this, for me, my part of that exchange is that I'm supposed to protect my credibility. If I show myself to be a known liar or purveyor of myths, then when I come to you with something that seems mythological, but is in fact true, you would have no reason to believe me. So with that, I'm going to get out of here for today, and God willing, I will see you on Monday. We'll be
Your worries and troubles, fear is not from above. Walk boldly and bless those around you. Exhort mercy and love. Even when the darkness may surround us, He's the Father that won't let go. Walk through the fire, His name lifted higher. Nothing can ever separate you from the love of God. Goes not away.